If you've been in business for any length of time, then perhaps you've had the displeasure of being caught up in some kind of conflict. Real conflict, the kind that doesn't cool off after a deep breath and a count to 10. Maybe it was with an employee, maybe even a customer. Maybe you were able to resolve the conflict over time, or maybe it ended up in a court of law or with a mediator. If you went the mediation route, then I hope you were fortunate enough to have someone like our guest today. He's a successful trial lawyer turned mediator, and he's been recognized as one of the best. In fact, he's taken 35 years of experience in law and mediation and written a book that everyone in business can benefit from called De-Escalate: How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. Proud Nation, please welcome to the show, Douglas Noll. Hi, Doug.
Hey, guys. Great to be here.
Glad to have you. This is, the promise of being able to calm someone who's angry in 90 seconds or less is something that I thought, yeah, okay. But then I read a little bit of your book, and I think you're onto something. I mean, really, it does come down to a very set, specific kind of reaction. But this isn't some new trick. This actually goes back to just basic civility. I mean, we've got this culture that is so amped up and polarized with one another,
Right.
talking about politics and all of that. And you just really kind of cut through it and say, guys, this is about being human beings, good listening skills. But tell us a little bit about your experience as a mediator in writing this book.
Well, I since I left the practice of law in 2000 to become a full-time peacemaker and mediator, I've always looked, always on the lookout for ways of being more effective in helping clients de-escalate and solve their problems. And in 2004, I was doing a very difficult mediation in Santa Barbara between a couple that had been divorced for some years, and the husband was suing the wife for $18,000. And they both spent $50,000 in attorney's fees. And they couldn't be in the same room with each other without screaming at each other and insulting each other. And out of desperation, the thought came to me, focus on the emotions. So I had them do that, and instead of listening to the words, in fact, I specifically told them, ignore the words and just pay attention to what the other person is feeling and then tell them what they're feeling. And the wife, Susan, started with that process. At first, it was difficult for her, but then she got it. And then when she was done, I had John listen to Susan and reflect back what she was feeling as she told her story. And after that all was done, which took about 15 minutes, John started sobbing. And he put his head in his hand and he just lost control. And finally he looked up and he looked across the table at her and he said, "That's the first time you've listened to me in 25 years. And the case settled 5 minutes after that. And I, what the heck just happened?
Wow.
I had no idea. I mean, yeah, exactly. Wow. I mean, I was stunned. So fast forward 3 years to 2007, and I study neuroscience, and I came across a study by Matthew Lieberman, who's a neuroscientist at UCLA. And he had just released a report that showed that when you label or name the emotions that a really angry, upset person is experiencing, when you do that, you are literally loaning them your prefrontal cortex, and that allows them to process their strong feelings very fast, so that the emotional centers of the brain quiet down almost instantly. And I read that and I remembered back to 2004 in that mediation and said, this is what happened. So then I started developing some skills around it and started teaching it. And I was blown away by how it worked in my mediation. So I started teaching it to other people, other mediators, because I do a lot of training of mediators, and I teach graduate school. So I taught a lot in graduate school. And then I had an opportunity to really see if this worked, and that is with the Prison of Peace Project. So in 2010, my colleague Laurel Carf and I started teaching murderers to be peacemakers. And we taught them these skills, and they instantly transformed not only their own lives, but the lives of all of the inmates around them. In fact, we got an unsolicited letter from the warden of the largest, most violent women's prison in the world saying, as a result of your work, this prison is now much, much quieter because your inmates now know how to quiet people down. So that's what led to the book. So many inmates have come up to me for so many years saying, if I'd had these skills 20 years ago, I wouldn't be in prison right now. That finally the little 50-watt dim light bulb in my brain went off. And I said, maybe I should write a book and tell everybody about what this is all about so they can use it themselves to do exactly what you're talking about, calm our angry world. Because it sure ain't going to happen from the top.
Yeah. Well, that's the truth. And I've got to be honest with you. When Carter first said, I want to do this interview, deep down inside, I thought, yeah, you want this because I'm the hothead. I'm the one that's you want me to
Buddy,
get on the other side
Taylor,
of that.
I've been calming you down for 30 years.
I know.
I can tell you guys are brothers.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time. But
I can tell.
I find it interesting, though, Doug, that the people who are most inclined to do something big in the world, who are most inclined to start a business or lead people or politics or whatever, oftentimes are the ones that have that passionate, emotional side that can escalate the situation very quickly, almost to the point of being out of control. And so when you look in boardrooms or you look in courtrooms, you often find that kind of person. And this is a skill that can be taught. It is a skill that can be mastered, and it is a skill that can absolutely bring a level of peace to your life and to your relationships that I think is really fascinating. And that's the reason I wanted to have you on. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I know that a lot of your listeners are business owners, so let's just take a situation that they might face and show them how to do this.
Oh, that'd be great.
I think
it's really simple. So let's suppose you're a business owner and you've got a customer who's really irate. I mean, just screaming at you, just going after you. So what do? Here's how my skills work. The first thing you do is for the next 90 seconds, ignore the words. It's just noise. Don't listen to it. It's nothing. It means nothing, and it really does mean nothing. Next thing you're going to do, step number 2, is you're going to guess at the feelings that your customer is having in that moment. What are their feelings? It's going to be anger and rage, frustration, but there's going to be some other stuff in there too. So just guess at what you think they might be feeling. And then the third step, and this is where the secret sauce is, reflect back what you think they're feeling using only a you statement. So you would say, well, sir, you're really angry, you're really frustrated, you're really disappointed, you feel like you've been betrayed, nobody's supporting you, and you don't feel like anybody's listening to you about the problems you're having. That's all you need to say. Watch for 4 things. 1, a nod of the head. 2, a verbal response saying, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. 3, a dropping of the shoulders. And 4, a sigh of relief. When you see those 4 things, you de-escalated, and now you can problem solve. And then the next question would be, after you got them calmed down, and said, well, what can we do to make things right? And you will solve 100% of your customer service problems if you just follow these 3 simple steps. It's that easy.
It takes the emotion, and it's like putting if you've ever watched a fire that is growing out of control, and you can just Google this on YouTube and find any number of videos of people with like grills, outdoor grills that have just caught on fire and have gone crazy. And somebody grabs the fire extinguisher and just walks over, and with one, it's like the flames completely go out. Mm-hmm. Just immediately go out.
And what's amazing is this is all supported by brain science. This is not some woo-woo mythical thing. It's all based on Lieberman's study, and it's how our brains are hardwired. It works every time without fail if you follow the steps. That's the secret. You got to do it exactly the way that I describe it. But if you do that, you're going to see incredible results. And your customers are going to be intensely loyal because for the first time probably in their lives, they had somebody who's really listening to them at a deep level. Powerful stuff.
One of the things as you're talking, I know that words really do matter in a lot of ways, but they don't matter when emotion takes over. And I think that is the message we need to understand, that the words matter when you're solving the problem, how you solve it. But when emotions are there, you've got to acknowledge those strong emotions. And I think that's brilliant.
Yep, that's exactly right. Because when we're emotional, we cannot think. Mm-hmm. We're crazy stupid when we're emotional. And that's why there's a reason for that, because emotions are designed to make us pay attention to what's going on around us so we don't get eaten by that saber-toothed tiger. But our brains still have all of that old programming from 150,000 years ago. And the brain has a very difficult time just differentiating between a physical threat and a social threat. It sees them both as the same. Many parts of our brain will recognize that. So we become emotional. And when we become emotional, we can't think. And therefore, we need somebody to help us de-escalate by lending us their prefrontal cortex and labeling what we're feeling so we can process it quickly and efficiently. Very powerful.
All right, Doug. So now you're talking to someone who basically sees that this needs to happen, but they've got their own emotionally charged feelings in this moment. They want to be heard just as bad as they, want to solve the customer's problem too. How do they set aside their own emotion in that moment to think about what it is the customer must be feeling, to imagine what that is, and then be able to parrot that back or reframe that or phrase that for the customer, to loan them their prefrontal cortex, as you said? How do they step out of their own emotion in that moment to do that?
Very difficult. Once you get escalated, you're caught up in the in the conflict, in the cyclone, and it's very, very difficult to step out. So the secret is not to go there in the first place. And here's the cool thing about these techniques: is if you ignore the words, guess at the emotions, and reflect back the emotions, it's like an energy bubble comes around you that's impervious to anything the other person is saying, and it is almost impossible for you to get escalated yourself. So the moment you start sensing that somebody is really mad, rather than bristle up and defend yourself, go vulnerable. Start listening to their emotions, focus on their emotions, and that is an incredible shield that will prevent you from getting escalated yourself. The second thing I would say is, once you've learned these skills, start teaching it to other people. Get other people to read the book, take the video course that I've got online. Start learning the skills and start spreading around, so you've got people you can go to who can listen to you when you need to be listened to. Because we all need to be listened to in this deep way. And it's very frustrating to know how to listen and not have anybody around who knows how to listen back to you. So that's the thing. And then over a period of time of practice, usually a couple of 3 or 4 weeks of practicing this, you will find that you can de-escalate yourself very, very quickly doing the same technique. You say, I'm really pissed off right now. I'm really frustrated. I'm a little anxious. I'm a little worried. Oh, yeah, I am. So what do I want to do about that? What choices do I have in front of me? And the moment you start acknowledging and validating your own feelings, you're calming yourself down. You're lending yourself your own prefrontal cortex. You're processing your own emotions, and you will find that your emotional centers will calm down, because the whole purpose is to make you pay attention. Once you paid attention to them and acknowledge them, they go away. And now you can problem solve.
And that's what everybody wants in the first place anyway. I mean, that's going to be the end result, whether it takes 2 years of litigation or mediation in order to get there, or it takes 20 seconds. Ultimately, that's what everybody wants.
That's right. And I mean, you can avoid a lot of heartache and a lot of hassle if you're willing to pay attention to the emotions rather than listen to the words.
I'm sitting here thinking how much money people could save. And if anybody's an attorney out there, I'm sorry, on attorneys, on mediators,
I take no offense.
on HR, situations. I mean, I'm just going through the list in my mind is, oh my gosh, this is such a valuable technique, and it's a profit center. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it is. And I think in financial terms a lot, Doug. So you have to kind of
how much time it saves, how much
the time, the effort. I mean, it's a profit center to learn these techniques.
Well, here's the thing that I think is really cool is if you're a lead, there's a difference between leading an organization and managing an organization. And the way I distinguish it is I say we manage things and lead people. Yep. Mm-hmm. So one of the most expensive things we have in our businesses is employee retention, finding good people, retaining them, and keeping them happy. If you listen to your people in the way that I'm describing, they will be loyal to you for life, because nowhere else will they have the experience of being listened into existence the way they are from their leader. And they will do anything for you. And all you have to do is want to pay attention. That's all you have to do.
There's another word for what we've just been talking about, and it hasn't even been used yet, which I find fascinating. But maybe it shouldn't even be used because it can tend to be overly used and more kind of a buzzword, but it's the word empathy.
Yes.
It's the ability to step out of my own shoes and step into someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what this is. This is a deep empathic practice. And you're engaging in deep empathic communication when you do this. And usually people think about empathy and they don't think about it from the context of leadership or business or relating to employees or vendors or suppliers or customers. But the fact of the matter is that we're all human beings and we all have emotions, and emotions drive every decision we make. We are 98% emotional and 2% rational. So if we can develop practical, pragmatic, empathic skills that don't make us weak, they really make us strong, then we're going to be immensely better off in terms of our own satisfaction in life and in terms of the bottom line of the business.
Oh, that's
empathy is
so
a powerful business tool, and it's not taught to people, and that's what I'm about. I'm about teaching people how to do this in a very practical, pragmatic, hard-headed way that really, really works.
And it doesn't stop with just business. I mean, obviously,
of course not.
In a process of mediation, in a really structured way. I mean, I can think of political, peace negotiations and things like that. But then on the really practical level that every person has to navigate, and that's interpersonal relationships. I mean,
how would you like to be able to stop a 2-year-old's temper tantrum in 30 seconds?
Yeah,
and be done with it.
That's I'm
how
thinking.
You do it. You label the kid's emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, you're really frustrated. You're really angry. You're not being listened to. You feel really tired. That all you have to do is label that child's emotions, and that temper tantrum will be over immediately.
Yeah, I mean, that is amazing, because as a parent, man, I look back. I wish I could parent. No, I really don't want any more kids, but I look back. I wish I could go back and raise the ones I had with a whole lot of the knowledge that I have today than when I was younger. I mean, but that's really, really true, to be able to stop somebody and just label those feelings and let them know that somebody really does care. It shows caring. It's compassionate.
That's right. It's validating.
Yeah.
And when you validate somebody that way, even a 2-year-old, they feel it, and they feel the love, and they change dramatically, rapidly, instantly.
Yeah, it really is the difference of, what do you have a choice? You're going to be compassionate or competitive.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah, and I used to be a very competitive guy, especially when in my trial lawyer days. But I've learned that sometimes that's important, but most of the time it's not. You can do a lot better with compassion than you can with competition. I know there are a lot of myths in our society around that, but I see the results of an undue focus on competition every day. I mean, that's what drives people into my mediation practice, is they become overly competitive, and they're trying to win. And that means they're trying to do stuff at the expense of somebody else, and that gets people pissed off. And then they lawyer up, and now they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation. And finally they come to me, and I get to clean up the mess.
And it's not, this is not the kind of thing that you've got to have, 6 or 8 years of, really deep counseling in order to figure yourself out, in order to be able to do this. It's a very simple process that anybody can do, and it really probably doesn't take that long to really learn.
No, that's why I wrote the book. I mean, the book talks about the process and why it works the way it does, and explains some of the science, and then gives hundreds of examples of how you can apply this in all sorts of different situations. And if as I tell people, the way to practice this is to start in really low risk social situations. So you're going to get a cup of coffee. Maybe you go to Starbucks, maybe you go to a coffee shop. Whoever is serving you, just look at them at 6 a.m. in the morning, whenever you're going, and say, hey, you look really happy today. And watch their reaction. Just start with that. You're really happy today. Label their emotion as happiness, and they're going to beam, and they're not going to stop talking. And do that every day for a week, and just watch what happens. And then try with somebody else, and try something a little bit more complex, something maybe a little bit edgier, until you have convinced yourself that this really works. Because you can listen to the great Doug Noll all day long, and you're not going to believe that this is really going to work until you actually experience it yourself. And when you do experience it, you will realize how powerful it really is, and it will become a part of you very, very quickly.
The book is De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. Douglas Noll, thank you for being on the show today.
Hey, you guys are great.
I know people are going to want to connect with you online, and you've got a lot of other things going on, and I want to just give you a chance to tell people where they can find the book as well as connect with you.
The book is available in all the usual places, and I have a benefactor who's put up a fund of money so that we can get this book into as many hands as possible. So if you want to pay the $7 shipping charge, we'll buy the book for you. And if you want to take that offer, you can go to dougnoll.com, DOUGNOLL.com, click on the banner, And for $7, you can get the book, and it'll be shipped right out to you. And you'll also get access to buy the video course if you want to do that too. Don't have to, but it's there. It's there as an offer if you need it. And you can also contact me through DougNoll.com. My email address is Doug@DougNoll.com. I'm a one-man shop. I have no assistant secretaries or other barriers, and I try to be as responsive and accessible as I can be to anybody who wants to talk to me. So that's how to find me.
Very
and Google
good.
me, of course.
Doug, thanks. And we always like to ask our guest at the end for a quote that means something to them. I'm wondering what your quote would be, and maybe you can tell us what it means to you.
Yeah, I like to say that peace is not a noun. Peace is not a noun. And what that means is that if we want to have peace in our lives, if we want to quiet things down, if we want to stop the anger around us that we see every day that is so disquieting to so many people, then that means we have to act. And we just can't sit and expect things to change. We have to learn how to de-escalate people, how to solve problems, and help people through their frustration and anger. And we need to teach people how to help us through our own personal anger and frustration. And so peace requires action, not just sitting around the fire singing Kumbaya. Peace is not a noun.
That's great. Good stuff. Doug Noll, thank you again for being on today.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.